I'm here with Noukky pretty much a couple of hours after the signing window opened. So we thought it was a great occasion to sort of like get into the talks of what the season will look like for the Spitfire next year, as far as we know, of course, and also talk a little bit about the things that happened last season. So I guess let's start with a blunt one. So you didn't finish last in NA, that last match that turned out to be pretty epic. Actually barred you from being the last place team. Still, I think, like, yes, in the preseason you were tempering expectations for your squad, and I think you had pretty reasonable ideas where you guys would land. But I think you probably even undershot your own expectations there. What do you think went wrong? What contributed to you guys just like perhaps underperforming?
Yeah, I think even though we set the expectations pretty low, we didn't factor some things in. Of course, Hurricane was a very, very strong roster coming into it because they have been very dominant in EU and they had like a really big win streak and had a good team synergy. But sometimes problems start surfacing if people are in a different environment than they used to be, and especially going from having a really, really strong contenders run to having a rather weak start of the Overwatch League season can be very influential for a team, like for team synergy, for team atmosphere, and for how we were able to handle expectations for the players. And for the staff, of course, not only the players.
Yeah, for sure. How do you, I mean, unfortunately, this led to a lot of the guys that you stuck around with for a long time, had a lot of success with in your academy teams, to now have to be let go. I think Sparka is the only one from the original Hurricane squad that you guys kept, other than Commander Axe, of course, who should be mentioned here as well. How do you feel about this right now? Do you feel like there could have been different scenarios where like that project could have transitioned better into Overwatch League? Yeah, okay.
That's fine. How I feel about it in general is I definitely didn't match my personal expectations when it came to managing the team and managing the staff. I definitely did some mistakes on how I tackled problems, and I'm really sorry for with how it turned out to be. He wants to comment too. He really likes Spartan, by the way.
It's the next signing.
He's the team mascot by now, so he's appearing in most interviews because he somehow can smell when I do an interview, right? So no, I've been pretty let down by myself rather than anything else. Like, I could have managed staff better. I could have like kept quality a bit better, I think. It was my, like, I don't want to say it as an excuse that it was my first run as a GM in like a league alone, but it definitely was a very big learning curve for me, and I probably let some of the players down with how I handled things. And I learned a lot for next season with how to do things better and how to like create a stronger staff that the players can rely on.
I mean, that sparks our curiosity, I imagine. Like, do you have any like concrete thing that you look at that you could talk about? What do you want to change?
One of the things that was very clear for me for the off season was that we needed a very strong head coach. Especially if you are a team that underperformed this massively, having a strong leader figure is that can keep the team together and can keep the players accountable for their actions and how they look to train and how they look to like their responsibilities within the team is something that we were definitely not prepared to have, or like that we missed mid-season a tiny bit. Not to blame like any of the coaches. For most of them, it was also their first Overwatch League season outside of Justin at the start. So nobody can really. Can you please stop pushing my buttons, cat? Yeah, he laid down on my space bar. It was not good. Yeah. We had a pretty young coaching staff when it came to like being in the Overwatch League. So it was basically just like managing expectations wrong, and we need someone to hold players accountable, and I'm pretty positive that we found someone that fits that bill very nice. As a small teaser of coach announcement soon, TM.
I suppose you can't tell us who it is, right?
I mean, it's probably leaked out there anyways. Like,
right.
People talk.
Very true. Yes. Now, okay. So you sound like you found your choice in the head coach. I assume you must now. I mean, you're forced to now have a sort of interim strategy until we know more about Overwatch 2 in which way to approach this offseason. Because as we said, the signing window just opened. Those that cannot secure like the talent might suffer in the end, even though we don't know if that's absolutely true. It could be very true that those that signed very good Overwatch 1 players will wake up and find out that their players haven't transitioned well into Overwatch 2. So where's your mind on that? What is your strategy going into this offseason? Because I don't think anyone wants the job of a general manager in the Overwatch League at the moment because of those complications.
It's really hard to think about strategy right now because usually if you're in a regular season that is not like a transitional season, you basically want to sign players that are free agents and that you feel really strongly about for the team rather quickly, which is also a reasonable strategy for this year. But this year is a tiny bit more tricky because basically signing pro players for a game that nobody has played on, like at least not on a regular client, more on a test client, and we have some footage of that, but we have nothing concrete about it. So it's really hard to say, hey, this player is a really great flex DPS in Overwatch 1. He will 100% be a great flex DPS in Overwatch 2. And due to us not having access to any client yet as teams, it's really hard for us to basically test which players are going to be good and which are not. So I think my personal strategy is if I feel very strong about a player, not necessarily mechanical skill wise, but also that has the whole package of he's eager to grind, he has a good mindset when it comes to improvement, and it feels like he is very motivated to like learn the new game, then it's definitely something that I would consider signing earlier than, for example, somebody that is like not sure or that I just know has the mechanical skill but lacks a tiny bit in like motivation.
Right, for sure. Now, of course, two players that you gave confidence in that they are going to transition well into Overwatch 2 are Sparker and Shax. So can you talk about that decision? Why was it clear for you that these guys were the guys that you wanted to take over into the next game?
All of them have a really great attitude, like work attitude, when it came to everything within the team. They were super eager to improve the whole season, even though it went like really, really bad. And Sparker especially is a player that has been around us for, I think it's almost like 3+ years now. So he has shown over that whole time of like being in Hurricane, getting picked up from ladder and going into professional play that he is very eager to improve himself, that he is very like hungry to be the best player in his role that he can be, and that he's really flexible when it comes to picking up new heroes. Like, he's not only a hit scan player, we put him like on occasion, we put him on Sombra, we put him on Mei, we put him on like so many different heroes, Echo even, which are more considered the flex DPS heroes. So we have very big faith in him learning the new game quickly and putting a lot of hours and a lot of work in. He was always the person in the team, be it in Hurricane or even in Spitfire, that put in the most like rank hours, or was at least up there for rank hours, for practice hours, for extra work, even though he was in school in the earlier times in Hurricane. So we have very big faith in him. And for Shax, it's literally the same thing. Like, he came into the project and from day in and day out, he put in the work, and we're really eager to see how he can perform on not being a specialist role, because of course he was kind of a tracer specialist going in, like in his like whole time in the league. And he always talked to us about like branching out, being more flexible, wanting to be like a solid player overall, not wanting to be like the best hit scan player, but like the best player he can be. So we want to give him that chance for next season.
Right, makes sense. Now, what can fans expect? Are we going to have an announcement of further signings very soon? Or are you going to see what the market does a little bit more? Are you waiting for Overwatch 2 to be able to judge how the players will transition? What is currently going on behind the scenes there?
I think currently it would be a tiny bit foolish to wait for the Overwatch 2 thing, because we don't know when we will get access to it necessarily. There is a tiny bit of info out there among the teams about that, but I think trying out players or like finding out a plan on how to create the best conditions for tryouts is currently our focus. Not necessarily like throw ourselves out there and like get players before everyone else gets them. Of course, there is some priority players that we want to talk to, but in general, like building the team is gonna be a bit more of a stretch. Like we're gonna take our time building the team, and like finishing off everything that we want to do.
For sure. Now, do you have a rough like outline of how many players you need and where you might want to double up in the roles? And do you have that figured out yet?
What we talked amongst the coaches and myself is that we likely gonna have probably 6 to 7 players is a good number. You definitely want to see that you double up either on tank players or on DPS players. Like those are the two most prominent roles to double up. Just because tank is you can't be very sure about the tank role in general if you didn't do the play test like 2 of the other teams did. You don't know like which skill set of tank excels like the off tanks that had definitely a different skill set than the main tanks in Overwatch 1. So you have to test out a tiny bit, and probably if you're not 100% sure, if you don't have like a solid candidate that you say, hey, he's a main tank and he can play all of the tank heroes. A good example is probably Super, which is really good on off tank heroes and main tank heroes. Plus being a good leader. The fly. You want to have like some variety to choose from in the long run, and DPS players always is something that you can always not have enough for just because there's such a huge pool of DPS players, so of DPS heroes rather, so it's a really safe bet to either double up on those roles.
For sure. Now, one curious development has been in the offseason that a lot of teams seem to rethink whether they are a hybrid roster, whether they are an entirely Korean roster, whether they are an entirely Western roster. Are you going to be one of the teams that switches allegiance there and going to have a different composition?
Currently, we're still looking at being a Western roster and having a focus on European players. I don't think that's going to change very, very hard. I'm not opposed to, as I said last season too, I'm not opposed to getting players from different regions. There's some pretty good Aussies out there. There is some people definitely from Korea to look at. Like if you want to round out your roster, we're definitely not shy and super locked in on all European. We are able to branch out, and we're not looking to gate anyone.
For sure, makes sense. Now, I mean, we know that from talking also to people from the Paris Eternal that playing on ping, and of course talking to Atlanta, who was pretty vocal about ping disadvantages and whatnot. That playing on ping is not ideal, and I mean, given that the theoretical issues that could have arisen if one of the European teams had made playoffs and you guys would have had to find some way to get to Hawaii, which is very hard to do, or sign an emergency roster or something like that. That's not optimal, right? So are you guys going to stay in Europe, or are you going to have any other solution to the issues that you face there? What's the current idea behind that?
I can't really speak for certain what the current idea is because we're still talking internally with the org what we can do for next year. But we're definitely leaning towards getting the roster together. Maybe in an A, maybe somewhere else. We have to see like how that pans out exactly. But I think not playing on ping anymore and like having a space where the team can be together is definitely something to improve on from last season, and something that would make like the whole situation as a whole definitely better. Investing into the league in the current state is a hard thing to do, to be honest, just because we are in kind of a transitional season where it's like, yeah, we're just going to start an Overwatch 2, but like nobody has too much info about it yet. So it's definitely hard to justify like really, really huge investments, I think, for many of the teams, which is why you saw the offseason unfold like it did.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess like we will soon find out how many of the big signings are going on. I think maybe there are some teams that have more confidence in the success of Overwatch 2, but yes, very, very much as you said, there's definitely an aura of caution in terms of how the league moves. All right.
Yeah.
Then we thank you and wish you the best of luck in this wild off season. It's probably the wildest we've had so far. And hope that you make it well into next year, and hope to soon see some news from the roster, and including the coach announcement, of course.
Yay! I'm very excited for that. I hope the fans will get some hope back when they see the coach announcement.
Right. Do you have anything else to share with the friends, or any message you would like to have them hear?
I think it goes without saying that I kind of want to apologize for how we handled many things this season. How we didn't like put out enough content or like engage too much with the fans. It was a rough season for us, and I'm very sorry about that. I hope we can do way better next year, and I hope you guys are not jumping ship like all of you guys. I think I hope some stay with us and some still cheer for the London Spitfire.
Then we thank you for the interview, and best of luck in the off season.
Thank you so much.